Yo guys, welcome to the last lap. Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it. Let's talk about Ferrari, to be fair, because, I mean, we might as well, right? We might as well. Let's get the Tifosi bashing out of the way.
Let's go very quickly.
That tyre wear on that car, concern.
Bro,
big concern. Carlos Sainz was Tokyo drifting that round. By the time Aston Martin
he was in reverse, mate. Yeah. In reverse towards the end of that race. Listen, the car is quick. In absolute terms, the car is quick. Yeah. The quickest on there, not named Red Bull. Absolutely, but you don't. But sprint race accepted. You don't get points on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
And they've been dealing with this last year with the SF17 or the F175. Quick in a straight line, quick round the corners, but a tyre. Charles couldn't even bloody drive it. That's why he kept on binning it in France and Monaco.
Sainz binned it in practice at Bahrain as well.
Bro.
Honestly, the stat that always baffles me, I say the stat, I don't actually know the numbers off by heart, but the percentage ratio between Charles Leclerc's poles and wins is absolutely awful.
Daft. 10 to 2, I think, something mad like that. It's daft, bruv. And again, it speaks to how much of a diva and how mercurial that design philosophy
lack of race
of
pace
Ferrari.
Ferrari just seemed to have.
And worse than that, Niran. Worse than that, bruv. And I suppose it's not race pace that they lack, to be precise. It's just that they can't push the car for fear that it's going to catch fire.
Yeah.
Or that the tyre deg is going to have them in a situation where they can't keep, right? That's the issue. And I just think their problems, not dissimilar to Mercedes, their problems are wider spread than the car. Hopefully, Freddie Vasseur can turn things round there. But everything that I'm hearing is that already the hires up at Ferrari are coming down on him, right? Suffocating.
I mean, this is the thing. Yeah, there was a news piece that came out a couple of days ago that's suggesting that he's already got less power than any of the other team principals on the grid.
What do we go?
Because I think he's been appointed almost a boss. What's his name? Benedetto Vigna. Who's basically kind of been appointed as his half boss that's like dealing with a lot of internal stuff at Ferrari. Rather than Fred. And Frederick Vasseur kind of gives me the vibe of a man who just doesn't care for that sort of shit.
He's not.
Like he won't take that. He's not just going to sit down like a Binotto.
But Niran, why would you?
I'll allow it. No, thousands, you wouldn't.
You brought me here to turn this ship around and you have a million things that need solving.
Yeah.
You have a million things. I mean, you saw them last year when we chatted last. There were 1,000,001 problems last year, Niran.
Yeah.
1,000,001 problems. Strategy nonsense. They couldn't even put the tyres on. Do you remember when they they instructed Charles to ride over the bloody wheel jack? How noddy do you want these mistakes to get? So you finally brought in a dude for Binotto who can exhibit a little bit of leadership and take you back to the promised land, the Michael Schumacher days, 2000, 2004.
And you take that leadership away from him.
And then you chop off his nuts straight away.
Yeah. That's Ferrari 101 though. Like, they give you many reasons and issues and things to laugh about them with. And you think, just when you think you can't get any worse, because I thought last year, right, this is a watershed moment for them. Look, they finished P2, right? So it's not like they had a terrible, disastrous season, but
Wow.
Yeah, respectively. Yeah, but even this season now, we've got new things to talk about with Ferrari. At least they will keep us entertained this year. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're part of the Tifosi right now, and that's a big ask for you. But if you're part of the Tifosi right now, what are you more concerned about? Charles Leclerc retiring from a pretty, I mean, he was actually, to be honest, I don't know if Alonso would have caught him. I think Leclerc might have just held on to that, depending on his tyre wear and whatever, but he was much further up the road than Carlos. Or are you more concerned about Carlos's pace and the tyre wear at the end of each stint?
Mate.
Because both are a bit of a problem.
And Carlos is meant to have kicked on, training, like understanding his handling dynamic and how to manage.
Mate, about 10 laps in, he was about 8 seconds off Leclerc. I was like, how did this happen? I don't know if he made a mistake or whether he just teleported backwards.
Different league for me is Charles too. Which one am I more concerned about? Mate, the reliability's got to be an issue because if you look at last season, so Charles did make mistakes, Imola, France were the two key ones. 7 and 25 points. I tacked on another 6 points if you account for the places that Max Verstappen gained. They worked it out to be about 38 points that Charles had lost on his own back last season. If you look at strategic errors and reliability nonsense, it's about 140 points, lads, that Max gained on Charles as versus because of those bloody Ferrari mistakes.
Foolishness, pretty much.
From Ferrari, for everything out of Charles' hands.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, if I'm Tifosi, I'm pointing the finger very firmly at Ferrari, their reliability issues, their nodding mistakes, their inability to manage strategy. That's where if you're talking about improvement year on year, that's where the bulk of their improvement is going to come from. Not Charles or even Carlos, if we're honest. It's the team.
Yeah, out of the two, I'd say I'm more concerned about Leclerc's sort of, the reliability issues, because I think Carlos over the season, he does improve. And I think Carlos is one of those drivers where at the end of the season you look at it and you think, actually, it wasn't as bad as I first thought he was. And having him at McLaren as well, like I've sort of seen kind of the growth from his Toro Rosso days up to now. I think Carlos Sainz is a fine, perfect driver for Ferrari. For that team, I think they're fine. Fred will need to decide very early on who is the number one driver, because that's another problem that they had last year. It's kind of, they were sort of juggling both sides, and it was like, as much as we like Carlos Sainz, you really should have thrown the plate at Charles Leclerc. So, for me, it's just the fact that the car does pack up. That's a problem for me, more than Carlos's pace, because I think he will sort of close that gap over the season.
And that's a no decision for me, Peter. Which between Charles and Carlos, which one of them are you going to back? I think Fred's already made it super clear that at a certain stage in the season, if it becomes mission critical to decide on a very distinct driver hierarchy between Charles, then he will make that decision. And I'm sure very, very soon you'll see Charles gapping in terms of cumulative points tally in the championship. Carlos Sainz, he's just the better driver. But I tell you where he's going to have issues. The fact that Banco Santander are still a title sponsor as a Spanish bank.
Yeah.
And who are they, Niran, going to want to see as the guy charging down and winning Silverstone, for example?
His name's not Charles.
His name is not Charles Leclerc. His name is not Charles Leclerc. So Frederick's got a task on his hands, mate, to manage not necessarily the toings and froings of the F1 team itself, but the boardroom. It's very different circumstance to what Toto's going through.
Yeah, boardroom pressures, driver pressure. I mean, it's almost a frustrating one as well for Carlos. For me, looking at Carlos, if this was to continue, again, it's only been one Grand Prix. But there seemed to be that progression late on in the season. A little bit of a charge from Carlos, again, partly caused by poor reliability from Ferrari in regards to Charles, mistakes from Charles as well. But there was a bit more evenness. He should have, he got pole at Kota, got slapped at turn one by George Russell. Yeah. All these sorts of things, got a little bit unlucky, and still the points tally was not too bad. He wasn't too far off Charles.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
To then be sort of 10 seconds off Charles, like standard. 20 laps into the race, it's just
standard. If the car doesn't speak to his specific driving style, then he's not going to be close, right? I tell you where Carlos can improve on Charles Leclerc's points tally. Race savvy. Saw it at Monaco, right? There were a couple of times last year, even bloody Brazil, when Charles Leclerc, it's cool, put on Inters on my tyres, on my car for Q3, that's fine.
He needs to make his own decisions, especially at Ferrari. You've got to make your own decisions.
Absolutely, mate. Carlos isn't having that. Carlos went out with the wets and put in a time, so I think Carlos he's worthy of some credit in that sense. He's not a submissive and yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. He's going to manage his own thing more than Charles.